Welcome everyone to a town hall with Sister District Mass, Rhode Island. We are delighted to feature Franccesca Cesti-Browne, who is running for a seat in Florida House District 115 and who is right here in her own little Zoom box. You can probably see her. I'm Juliet, a volunteer and member of the Mass Rhode Island Steering Committee. I am here in the bathroom because it's the only quiet place in the house, and I will be moderating tonight. Thank you so much for being here. A word about process. I have a list of questions you've submitted for Franccesca, and you may also submit questions at any time by typing them in the Zoom chat section, which you can click on at the bottom of your screen. If you'd like to applaud at any point, feel free to do the Zoom clap, and we will be recording and sharing this event. For those of you unfamiliar with Sister District Project, we are a national grassroots organization of almost 40,000 volunteers working to flip state legislatures from red to blue. Why do we care so much about state races? For one, redistricting is coming up after this election. In Florida, the state legislature draws district lines, and for the past 21 years, this legislature has been Republican. They seem to have one strategy, which is gerrymandering. Here is Judge Terry Lewis after a 2014 Florida court case. He said, and I quote, "Republican political consultants or operatives did, in fact, conspire to manipulate and influence the redistricting process." So there you go. Now it's our last chance to get progressives into office so they have a voice in drawing state maps for the next 10 years. State laws also affect our daily lives in every way possible, especially now. State laws govern most police conduct. States are taking the lead in fighting COVID-19. Unfortunately, Florida's Republican trifecta is going in the opposite direction, which is why we need more Democrats in office. State laws determine funding for education and for the environment, two causes Franccesca really cares about. Finally, state-level campaigns often operate on a shoestring, meaning our contributions have a huge impact. Franccesca is a first-time candidate who needs to get her name out there and of course can't canvass in person right now. So every dollar makes a difference. Franccesca got into this race because she feels Florida state lawmakers neither know nor listen to the people they represent. She could not offer more of a contrast. After immigrating to Miami from Peru as a child, she spent most of her life in District 115 and is raising her family there. She's the former chair of the Miami-Dade Hispanic Affairs Advisory Board. She knows her community because she's part of it. One issue she's passionate about is public education. Franccesca is a proud graduate of Miami-Dade Public Schools and was the first in her family to earn a college degree and a master's. She's spent her professional life advising nonprofits, including educational institutions. She's on the board of an organization called Be Strong, which teaches adolescents healthy behaviors, and which to date has served over 200,000 kids and families in her school district. She currently works as a director of finance and operations for Georgetown University Department, so I guess you could say she is still in school. As a Miami native, Franccesca has seen firsthand the devastation wrought by climate change, and like our other Florida candidate, Ricky Unquira, she's concerned about the state's fragile environment and its supply of clean drinking water. As a lawmaker, she plans to protect her community's ecosystem. And now, I'd like to hand the virtual mic over to Barbara, who will test your knowledge of Sunshine State trivia.
Thank you very much, Juliet. Those of you who came to our last town hall will remember that we did some trivia just to test people's knowledge about Florida. Most of us are from the Northeast and we maybe don't know as much about how Florida works as people from the state itself. So we have a few questions for you and we're gonna set up a poll so you can try to answer them, and we'll give you a pretty short amount of time to answer them. And this is just for fun. We're not really keeping score, but we want to, just help people get to know the state a little bit. So our first question, true or false? Florida is one of 6 states that allow straight ticket voting in 2020. That means you can vote all Democrat or all Republican just by checking one box. All right, looks like we got people are kind of 50-50 on this one. So let's take a look and see what the actual answer is. We've got more people who say it's true. The actual answer is that it's false. The only states that allow straight ticket voting right now in 2020 are Alabama, Indiana, Michigan, Kentucky, Oklahoma, and South Carolina. Next question. Very important question. Which of these TV shows was not set in Florida? Was it Golden Girls, Dexter, Cougar Town, or Hannah Montana? I haven't watched all of these shows myself, so kind of looks like most people think it was Hannah Montana, and the answer is Hannah Montana. Good work, guys. Next question. The highest point in Florida is Britton Hill. How high above sea level is Britton Hill? Britton Hill is almost in Alabama, actually. Is it 1,014 feet above sea level, 781 feet above sea level, 345 feet above sea level, or 54 feet above sea level? All right, looks like it was very close between 781 and 345. And the actual answer is, it is 345 feet above sea level, and Florida is very flat. So it's famous for having the it's the state that has the lowest high point of any state in the country. And our last question, we'll say when Franccesca is elected. We're not gonna say if Franccesca is elected. When Franccesca is elected, how many constituents will she represent? 157,000, 76,000, 349,000, or 188,000 constituents? So it looks like we've got a mixture of answers, but I think that the results are correct. More people thought that it was going to be 157,000 constituents, and so that is the right number. The House has, in Florida, has 120 members, each which represent one district, and that results in about 157,000 constituents per representative. So thank you, that was our trivia game. Thank you for playing. And I will hand the mic back to Juliet.
Thank you, Barbara. And now, without further ado, let's welcome Franccesca Cesti-Browne and get this community-minded progressive where she belongs in the Florida House. So she will say a few words, and then we'll open it up for the questions.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Juliet, Michelle, Patrick, Barbara, everyone. Thank you so much. This means a lot when we can partner up with sister districts and help Florida. We're hoping and we're working really hard to make sure that the down ballot Democrats can get the vote out and connect with the voters. We're doing a lot of virtual and reach outs, and also a lot of phone banking to make sure that we're driving up the voters to come out and flip for not only the legislature, but also get Joe Biden elected and get everyone making sure that Florida gets to be blue again and win the presidency. Some fun facts about me, and continuing with the trivia mode, is I'm also a Girl Scout troop leader. I have a daisy and a brownie. I'm also a cookie mom. So when you enjoy those those delicious cookies, it's amazing. And to see the girls really transform and get confidence when they approach folks and really come into their own just when they're offering someone a delicious cookie, it's amazing to watch. So education and caring and loving my communities instilled in everything that I do. And that's why it's so important for me to run. 2016 really started that bug with the presidential election, and then 2018 totally did it for me when in-house in our state, when we were voting for things like restoring voting rights for persons that were coming back into the community after serving their time. When we voted, and then it got to our state legislature that has been Republican for over 30 years, almost 30 years, and they flipped our vote. And then I couldn't understand how many things were happening at the state level that we, the people, just didn't know. And that actually concerned me, because unless something makes the right headline, we, the people, have no idea. And so we need to bring that, especially in Florida, needs to change. And we see that right now with the pandemic. Look what's happening with us in Miami in particular. We are like the second epicenter of the state. And so my background in nonprofit has allowed me that as soon as this pandemic happened, I went into like response mode. So we actually set up a rapid response with the nonprofits that I work with. We provided masks and hot meals for seniors since the pandemic started, and we're still doing that now. Actually, next week I'll be renting another U-Haul and going down to the farms to pick up some fresh produce and actually delivering them to the doors, not just the food distributions, because a lot of folks still in need don't have the transportation. So there's a lot of things that we're still doing, helping folks with unemployment, and a lot of things that we're doing that our current, my opponent is not even doing, and a lot of the Republican representatives are not doing, and there's so much need. So this is exactly why I'm running, because we need people that are connected to our communities and that understand the things that we're going through as people. And so this is why now I want to serve at this level, and not only just in my community. And I hope to be the voice of folks and make sure we bring some equity and justice and the things that matter the most to all of us back to Florida, because we really need the change. And of course, redistricting happens in 2021. So we need actual good sense maps that can represent and not cut through neighborhoods, not cut through actual cities, that split up the representation, but the maps that make sense, and they're good maps where the people elect the representatives and not the maps and the representatives making those maps elect themselves. So I'm honored to be here. I totally appreciate your support. And together, we're really not only going to flip my seat, which is in a Democratic district. It's just this one seat within our district that is Republican. And the numbers are there, and we're still going to do it. But we're going to start flipping the state legislature and driving out that vote. So thank you so much. And I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Wonderful. I'm ready to vote for you here, if I could. Let me ask you some questions from our attendees who actually have many questions. A question from Lucy. Can you tell us about your district, Florida House District 115? We now know how many people are in it. What else?
Yes. So actually, my district is 63% Hispanic. It also has majority of the district is a family district. So we have a lot of families with one or more children. And it actually, it's very wide, and it's very diverse in the sense of socioeconomic equity within the district. We have a very affluent area, and then we have some areas with working class families and college students. And so it's a very diverse, and the needs are different. Well, one area might really be into school choice. Another area is really wanting and needing a good public school education system for us to fund them and actually help public schools be a choice. So understanding those nuances, and because I've lived here for so long, really allows me to understand these areas and the need better.
Do you have different strategies for reaching these very different populations?
Yeah, so basically what happens a lot is that we need to reach out the voters in Spanish. So all of our literature, our website, everything that we have is in dual language. And also if we had a higher community of Creole, which we do have in parts of Miami-Dade County in Florida, we would have also made that adaptation to our literature and our communication, because it's about reach. The other thing is making sure that the issues that we're addressing, the basic ones, really encompass the basic needs for each of those areas. Environment is very big on one part of the district because they're closer to the water. So sea level rise is a concern. However, sea level rise also impacts other parts of the county or the district because they have septic tanks. So sea level rise affects them, but in a different way, and our water quality as well. So yeah, making sure that our policies and our issues, our priorities address both from both sides, not just one side.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That actually segues into another question, which is, could you tell us a little more about your plans for the environment and for the water supply?
Yes, so right now, which is interesting, is the state of Florida has been funding studies, right? And we continue to spend a lot of money on studies. So my hope is that we can work together. We've already started having those conversations, not only with other candidates running in the neighboring districts, but currently electeds and incumbents returning to their seats, about putting forward some aggressive plans to help also change. Specifically, the number one thing is working with the cities and counties to help switch and improve the septic tank system. There was a study that was done recently at the county that pretty much we have 8 years before the septic tanks within most of the district are gonna, overfill and start polluting our water supply. So that would be the first thing that we need to address. The other is actually making sure that we work with other neighboring districts, especially on the coast, to make sure that we're making resilient structure and construction requirements, and work with local counties to do that. And then also, we also have parts of a very affluent neighborhood, believe it or not, that don't even have, that are still on well water. And so they don't have fire hydrants. They're about a little less than 1,000 homes, but they're also older homes, which is mostly, older residents. But because it's an affluent area, the county doesn't want to help. The state doesn't necessarily want to help, which used to have a program to help them switch into water and sewer. So making sure that we help that and address that, because, there's the water, it was already been proven that the well water is contaminated. So we really need to make sure those two major things are addressed immediately when we get into office.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I didn't expect that. Thank you.
Yeah, when I found that, I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Also related to the environment, here is a question from Jacqueline. In the face of issues like redlining and environmental justice, how do you envision changing the system whose primary function was to keep Black and Brown and Indigenous people out and oppressed, and restore the environment in ways that empower Black and Brown and Indigenous peoples? How do we raise issues of systemic racism as implicitly attached to environmental restoration?
Yes, that's a really great question. So one of the things, one of my jobs was working for the YMCA of Greater Miami. And so I really worked a lot with developing programs and finding funding for programs for youth in low-income communities, to ignite that same love and passion and expose them to science. And also help them. I mean, some children had never even been to the zoo to learn about animals and the ecology. So I think also investing in programs to help families and communities have an experience, and the resources for them to also learn to love the environment. As a Girl Scout troop leader, we take the girls out to the Everglades, and we really do hands-on projects, and we show them not only to appreciate, but how do they preserve, and what can they do, right? And present those challenges. And we need to do the similar programming for these neighborhoods. So one of the things that happened with when I worked in the YMCA, and you see it, there's really good, amazing summer programs for specific parts of the communities, right? They have the marine biology camp and the dance camp, but then on the other parts of the district, they barely have a summer camp. So my goal to me now, South-Dade, Miami-Dade County, which is part of my district and part of other districts, has always been very neglected in resources. So I've been working really hard with organizations like the Miami Dolphins, the NFL team, and other groups to bring a lot of resources down to South-Dade part of Miami-Dade, because we don't have those programs that we should have. So back when I was at the YMCA, I actually partnered up with Zoo Miami and the Cultural Affairs Council, and I wrote a grant and got funding for a 2-year program to have a free or very low cost zoology camp, so that we can have kids go to the zoo 2 days a week and work with zoologists on the animals and understand the different exhibits and the ecology, because it is important to start, piquing their interest. So making all those resources available, I think it's key, and it starts with programming.
Mhm. Great, thank you. A question from Cheryl. The COVID pandemic has backpedaled efforts in recycling. What impact can you make to reduce this trend?
Yeah, so it's very interesting because we were just having the conversation earlier today. People are giving masks out, for example, and now you're finding masks and gloves in parking lots, you're finding them at parks. And so I think if we also think a little bit of investing a little more and making things, we could have reusable, washable masks. We can have, we can change the way we have the gloves and things like that, because those are things that people need to change on a regular basis. And what we're doing is we're adding really to our landfills. So definitely, one of the things that we could be doing, honestly, is having all these organizations spending money, trying to buy things that are reusable and rewashable. And those are things that I have been working with. Actually, this is one of my things. I really wanted to donate some masks to nurses. And I had a friend that knows how to sew. I don't, but I can iron like it's nobody's business. So we were making masks. We made 150 reusable, good quality, beautiful masks. And we gave them out to 3 different hospitals because they needed it. They were low on PPE, especially at the middle of the pandemic. So doing those things and working with actual folks that actually make upholstery and paying them or working with them to make reusable masks. I think right now we're just reacting and not really thinking of the impact all this is causing. And I think that's one of the things that hopefully we won't have that issue by November, but unfortunately we will, that I really do want to change. How can we reignite the economy by repurposing businesses and also making sure that they're environmentally safe?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
These are amazing questions, by the way. These are awesome.
What is the feeling in general in your district toward how the governor and how the state legislature is doing right now with the pandemic? Because the news is not good up here, looking at Florida.
Yeah, it's funny. I do get I get texts from like my colleagues in DC and other parts of the state. I work with folks all over the state and actually even other countries, and they're like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, we're safe, but we're home, right? You really can't go out, and it's up to you as an individual to self-care, because we're not getting that leadership. People are frustrated. People are scared. There's also a big push to reopen schools. And if there's not a clear guidance, the problem is there's no unified leadership. Every city, every county, every part of Florida is doing something different. And that's where my push right now is really having the governor put a statewide mask order. Like that's what we need. People are still going to amusement parks. People are still traveling from different parts of the state where there might not be a mask order. So what do you do, right? So the feeling is people are also feeling disappointed. The unemployment system, there's someone that I'm helping with unemployment that they still haven't gotten their unemployment since March. And yeah, people haven't paid rent in 5 months. People don't have, barely have money for groceries, forget medicine. Some people have lost their healthcare. So you do have the folks that are feeling it. And I think those are the majority, but they're so disillusioned by the lack of leadership that it's hard. So even me as a candidate, my goal is also to help them know that this is not okay, and also reignite their love, not love, but their trust in our government and good leadership, because it's coming, and we need it. So, it's a lot that we have to do right now.
Right. How will you get your governor's attention if the pandemic is still with us?
Oh, yes. So the first thing actually, so one of the things is, I've been taking some legislative classes from some folks that have the experience so that when I get elected, we can hit the ground running on some good bills. The first thing, honestly, is unemployment. We need to change our unemployment. I don't know if you know, but Florida ranks, I think, 47th on the unemployment benefit. We give about $275 a week. And we're one of the most expensive cities in the whole United States. Makes no sense. So that's one of the things we want to do, making sure that we are increasing the amount of the weekly benefit, and also the requirements, especially during times of an emergency and a crisis, that make it accessible. And to believe it or not, I've helped folks with their unemployment. There's two different systems that you need to go to apply for unemployment, and they don't talk to each other, which makes no sense. So we're really making it very difficult for families that are finding themselves in need. And this is with the pandemic. And imagine all the things that have been happening before the pandemic, right? So that's the number one thing that we're going to do. And we're going to be loud in asking all the questions. We cannot continue to be the yes people, which unfortunately, the Republican Party seems to be doing. They fall in line and they don't speak out for their constituents and for what's right. And so I really plan to ask the hard questions and say, why are we not doing this? And bring light to the issues, which is also what we're doing a lot with the campaign. Once we start bringing noise to these issues and light, it's hard for them to start going away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. How, I'm assuming that small businesses have been hit hard?
Yes. Yeah, so actually I've been speaking to a lot of small businesses right before this second, well, the bigger peak of the first wave, I think, we didn't even get off the first wave. Businesses, when we reopened, they were only doing 20% of business in sales. So the resources that they could have had with the PPP, the payroll protection plans that the federal government put out, by then they were exhausted. So by the time they were actually opening, they didn't have staff, or they didn't know how to pay them, or actually didn't have enough money because they weren't selling. So a lot of small business owners went back to working their counters at restaurants, went back to working, their cash registers or their bookstores and businesses. So yeah, they're being impacted. And that's the thing, if we don't reignite our economy by helping the people, which are the ones that really reignite the economy, we're not going to get back to a better economy, what they keep saying, reopening or not. There's a lady that I help. So she has a job. She's a hairdresser. But she's like, Franccesca, I have a job, but I go to the salon and no one's coming because people are concerned with the pandemic. So she's like, I have a job, but I have no income. So how do I still pay my rent? So I think us understanding that giving back to the people is really the key to reigniting our economy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Given the pandemic, here's a question from Lucy. How do you anticipate getting out the vote in your district? Do you anticipate most voters to mail in or vote in person? And are there concerns for voter suppression in your district?
Yes, we've been seeing a lot what's been happening in other states with the limited number of voting sites, the long lines. So we're really here in Florida, at least trying to get ahead of the curve of something, which is the vote by mail drive. So actually, as of 2 days ago, there were 1 million Democrats that had registered to vote by mail in the state of Florida, which is huge. Yeah, like total huge kudos. We are working as well as part of our campaign, and a lot of candidates as well. We're doing a whole vote by mail contact when we reach out to voters in the district, because there's still a lot of people that have reservations, right, about voting by mail. I myself have been voting by mail for, since I could vote, because of work or travel or whatever was happening. And so, I got my mom to do it. So building their comfort level, but we're really making a push. I'm actually going to have a little workshop with our local DEC to explain folks about voting by mail and building that confidence. But we're doing a lot of outreach with social media, a lot of phone banking. So if you have extra time, please volunteer for campaigns for us for phone banking. And then we'll be also doing some text messaging and postcards. Who doesn't love to write and receive a nice postcard? So we're trying to be creative. We are exploring the possibility of doing some literature drops, not knocking on doors and not having that interaction, but at least having those literature drops so folks can feel comfortable having and reading some information. So definitely a lot of creativity, but we all need that human contact. So the phone calls have been really nice, and the postcards have been well received. So yes.
Great. Here's a question from David. What causes a majority Hispanic district to vote Republican?
It's interesting. I think a lot of people thought my opponent was Hispanic, but he's not. And I think that's what it is. I think also people in this district, which is interesting, they have because it's a Democratic district, to be honest with you. I think some folks get swept away by the name and the last name. The last two representatives that we've had have had possible Spanish last names, but they haven't been. They themselves are not Hispanic, so that's also been interesting. So I think that play on confusion by certain candidates. But there's honestly no reason aside from making sure that we get out there that this seat should be another Republican seat, and actually, filled by Hispanic that lives in the district.
Right. Great. Thank you. Another question from Lucy. How do you envision better healthcare for your district? And how do your healthcare views differ from those of your opponent?
I support expanded Medicaid. I support having a quality, affordable healthcare for folks. And especially now with the pandemic, a lot of people have lost their job, good jobs, right? And now either cannot afford to pay their COBRA or, just whatever other programs that they may have for healthcare. And now they have nothing. So I think understanding that healthcare is not just for those with low resources or low income, that healthcare is for everyone, especially during this time, I think is key. My opponent does not support expanding Medicaid or the family medical leave, which is also something that's so needed right now because people are still going to work, possibly sick, because they can't afford not to show up to work and not get paid, right? Because the unemployment is so bad. It's all a trickle down effect. If we don't take care of people's basic needs, we're not going to move forward and progress as a community or our economy.
Exactly. What's your position on women's reproductive rights?
That is a very hard choice to make with women's body, but I feel women have the right to choose what they do with their body, and that's up to them, their partner, their doctor, and their faith. And so I know what I would do, but I'm no one to impose my views on anybody else. So I feel like everyone needs to make those choices for themselves. So women should have the right to make those decisions. And we shouldn't be monitored what to do with our bodies. I have 2 daughters too, and that concerns me. We all know what we would all do in those situations, or we think, but there's also situations, and I think this is also the problem. People think everyone has our own life or life situation, and they don't think about all these other alternatives that people have and they live, and they want to impose what they would do or what they feel or think or believe they should do on others. But there's a lot of cases where people are not like us and they need different solutions for themselves.
A couple of questions from Abby. I will start with, what do you see as the best means of reaching your voters and getting over the critical 50% threshold? And how can we best support you in doing that? As someone else asked, how can we best help you?
Awesome. So the numbers are there. We are, as long as we're able to communicate and connect with voters through digital, through mailers, through phone banking, text messaging. So it's a combination of time, talent, and treasure. Really, it's all needed and it weighs the same. So if you can't donate, and again, no amount is too small, no time is too little, and all talents are welcomed. So, whatever you could do to help us connect with voters, especially during these times where we cannot knock on doors, and we need to be creative in how we engage them and make them know that we're here and we care and we're being authentic in our interest in wanting to represent them. That's what the best thing that we could do. We're having next Saturday, we're having a phone banking with the local DEC to work on getting vote by mail registrations by registered Democrats that haven't registered to vote. Our virtual field kickoff on August 1st. Where we're going to be dropping off some literatures endorsed just myself around my community. And also we're going to be doing some phone banking starting August 1, and then we'll up to texting. So if you have time, talent, or treasure, all of those are welcome. And we would appreciate it because it's all about us.
Mm-hmm. Do you have, when I think of Florida, I think of very old people and also young people, college students. Do you have different strategies for reaching older people versus young?
Yes, I really do think having a team that represents the district as well is very important. And so making sure that we can understand what everyone's looking for. So for example, my experience has been that the younger generation really just wants to have the ability to help and run with some ideas and plan. They can organize like it's nobody's business. And we've seen that. So making sure we empower them and bring them on board and help strategize with them, I think that's the number one thing. And the messaging. So we need to make sure we're having the right people, that we understand each other and how to reach. So social media, especially like Instagram and Twitter, works for one demographic over the other. You know, I'm still like super comfortable on Facebook, not so comfortable on Twitter and Instagram, where the younger generations, that's all they do. So understanding and having a team that knows that, and understanding the district. But the messaging is the same, right? Everyone needs affordable healthcare. Everyone wants education, and we're building for the future. And we're building, you know, for the future generations, for our kids. So everyone has that interest in mind.
A question from Abby. Is your district part of Debbie Mucarsel-Powell's district? And if so, to what extent can or do you coordinate?
That's an amazing question. Yes, so Congresswoman Mucarsel Powell, she has a portion, her and I overlap in a smaller portion of the district. The other part is actually Congresswoman Donna Shalala's. We've already had conversations with Congresswoman Debbie Mucarsel Powell to do coordinated campaign efforts, because we've all realized that we need to work together as a team, maximize our resources, and be creative. So we're starting those conversations. And then we're also working into trying to reach out and set some things up with Congresswoman Shalala to do the same thing, because I have both of them in my district. So we're working really hard to maximize our resources and our reach. So yes, great question.
Great. Just to go back for a minute, you were speaking about expanding Medicaid. How close is the Florida legislature to expanding Medicaid? And how many legislators would need to change their vote to get it passed?
So I don't have the last vote, but I know that, you know, we're 14 seats short of reaching majority of flipping the Florida House. So right now we're not close at all to getting, you know, expanding Medicaid. And I think, you know, what also happens, I think we need to do a better job educating and informing folks what that means, right? Because a lot of people, again, they associate Medicaid and expanding Medicaid with folks that may not have the means to get healthcare, but they forget that also, you know, talks about reducing the cost of prescription medication, making sure that doctors who work with patients are capping the insulin levels, and also, you know, treatments of certain medications that we couldn't get. So I think we need to do a better job educating folks on what it really means and how it really benefits all of us, not just a small group.
Mm-hmm. Another question, tell us a little bit about what the Florida ballot looks like. We understand it's very long. Our previous town hall candidate, Ricky Unquira, said they tend to be long and confusing, which I assume is not an accident. And if we are phone banking, what is our best advice or encouragement to voters to get to the bottom of the ballot?
You know, sometimes I'll be like, start at the bottom, work your way up to the top, to be honest with you, because you do get lost. It's so much. And this cycle, we have so many races, and we do have just in Miami-Dade County alone, we're going to have the mayor's possible runoff in November. We're going to have some other school board seats, possible runoffs as well. Plus plus some amendments. So I would honestly say, take advantage. If you sign up to vote by mail or sign up with your Department of Elections, they'll send you a sample ballot. And you can actually start looking at the ballot, or even sign up to vote by mail and pre-fill it at home if you want to show up to actual voting site, and then just take down your answers. Because the more you read and do the research ahead of time, by the time you get there, it's like you can just bubble in and remember what you did. But if not, start from the back. Work your way up.
It's sort of like eat dessert first.
Yes. You know you're going to be full after dinner. So like your main course, so like just get dessert first.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. Thank you. And another question related to an earlier question, but don't many Latinx voters in Florida vote Republican because they're socially conservative? I guess what are the links between sort of the voting and the conservatism, the social conservatism?
So I think that's interesting, right? Because what we saw when we also think of Latinx, we're also predominantly thinking it's more common to see a Cuban American that is a Republican than it is to see a Cuban American that is a Democrat. And that has to do back with the history between Cuba and the United States. But I think most Latinx are either NPAs, to be honest with you. We have huge pockets of Latinx that are MPAs, and some are Democrats. So I would say it just depends on the neighborhoods and mostly what the concentration is of the community that makes up that Latinx community, because every country also in Latin America and the Caribbean has a different experience with their government and their structure of their government, and they carry that when they come here. So that's what happens with, especially a lot, you see it very obvious with or with predominantly with the Cuban American community. So to be a Cuban American and a Democrat, it's like, whoa, which is interesting, but it depends what country you're from.
Mm-hmm.
It really kind of brings that history with you.
Mm-hmm. Is there a Peruvian community where you are?
So interestingly enough, Kendall is actually where most Peruvians came at the time in the 80s when my family and I came here. Now it's kind of moved around, and it's part of the western part of Kendall more so. So it's not totally in the district, but it still has that vibe of the Peruvian American and Peruvian community vibe. We have great Peruvian restaurants all throughout Kendall. So yes, but it's mostly West Kendall, but we're still cross-pollinating.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. I think that is our questions for right now, unless does anybody else have any questions right now for Franccesca? This was very informative. Thank you. This really.
No, thank you. The questions were amazing.
But it really gives us a picture up here of Florida, which really feels a bit like a foreign country to those of us who were born in Boston. I mean, it really, it feels like a different world.
Yeah.
So this was illuminating. Let me turn the mic over to Patrick, who is going to discuss how we can answer your call to action. Patrick.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Franccesca, so much. Thanks, Julia. Thanks, everybody who's here tonight, joining us to listen to our fantastic candidates. And so I love that that part about telling people to start at the bottom of the ballot. And so fortunately, our team is doing phone banking for you twice a week now, along with we have a few other candidates we're also calling for, but we're making calls to your district already, and now we can start telling them to start at the bottom of the ballot. We'll tell them that. And so if anyone here wants to join us, it's really easy to get started. It's something that we do it virtually over Zoom. We have lots of team spirit. We give lots of support. We share stories. We just have a really good time, and we're doing some good work. And we encourage anyone who's either experienced at phone banking or who's never done it before. It's just something that that once you have people around you, friendly people doing it with you, it's something you can really really get used to and make a real impact. I mean, we talk to people in the districts for our candidates, and we identify supporters, we recruit volunteers, we help clean up the voter lists for our candidates. So it's really it's important work, and I'm going to put a link in the chat, which is a link to our event listing page, and you can go to that page and you can see which you can RSVP for any of our Sunday or Thursday virtual phone banks. So hope to see you. I know that we have some of our phone bankers here tonight, and hope to see more of you joining us. So thank you again. Back to you, Juliet.
Thank you, Patrick. Oh, one more question just came in. Hold the phone, everyone. Do you sense that people are more likely to pick up the phone now that they are home to avoid COVID? Are you getting better, like unexpectedly good response rates?
Yes. Yes. And I would say the more, unfortunately, the more people have to stay home because of our numbers, people are missing that interaction. So the response rate has been great. Actually, I was calling some folks earlier today and we were just talking about a bunch of things. They were telling me how their day was and everything. And then we talked about the election and the importance. But yeah, people are missing that connection. And luckily, gosh, we still have phones that we can actually still connect with folks. I wonder if we can next time do like video, when we get farther into the future, video phone banking, because I think that would be pretty awesome too. But yeah, people are really, really loving just someone reaching out. Some folks actually don't have family around or have not spoken to anyone in a long time. And so they're really welcoming to the phone calls.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. So it's almost a bit of a fortuitous, I mean, there's a sweet spot there between the terrible things going on and connecting with people. So how do your girls feel about having a mother who's running for office?
Oh, they're over the moon. They were so excited that we were going to start knocking on doors, but obviously now we can't. But they're great. They actually understand. My daughter today, this morning, she saw I was doing some campaign stuff earlier. And she goes, "You got this, mommy." I have a 9 and a 7-year-old. And for my 9-year-old, I went to go speak to her 3rd grade class during the school year, just to tell them about, how about Florida legislature and how it works. And the teacher was even like, "I've never met a candidate." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right." I've never met a candidate. I mean, I volunteer for candidates, but to know someone in your circle or so close that is running and really has the best interest of their community and good heart to make a difference, I put myself in their shoes too. It's kind of amazing. And to know someone that is doing that for the better good of everyone. But they're super supportive. Actually, they were telling me, "We're gonna be able to write postcards for folks," and I was like, "Yes, let's do postcards." So they're so into it. And my husband's amazing. He's super supportive. The same thing right before COVID happened, we were collecting petitions, and we will go out as a family and collect petitions. After dinner. So it's a total family campaign. My uncle, my mom. So it's super good.
Uh-oh. You've frozen. That's it.
Oh, did I freeze?
Oh, there, you're back. You're back.
I'm back.
You're
I was
back.
gonna say it's a total family campaign. So yes, sir. We have a huge storm, typical Florida summer. So we were losing power earlier today, and it's really impacted connectivity. So my apologies.
Got it. That's okay. You are setting such a wonderful example for your girls and really for girls everywhere. I mean, that's.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, that's a real example. Thank you so much for being with us today, for going through this battery of questions. I think you really have illuminated so much for all of us up here. We are 100% behind you. We can't wait to see you get into office. We'll be cheering and we'll be here working for you. And just a note to everybody, we have an upcoming event on July 29th with the esteemed Alan Lightman, Renaissance man from MIT, who I think might even be on this call tonight. So please check our event page and come back and join us. And this was really a wonderful opportunity. Good luck.
Thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate you all. Stay safe.